So recently, I was turned on by a friend to a paper on Sui Juris. And this term Sui Juris is uniquely important to Americans, the nation in which I live, because it points out the fact that we were required of our Constitution to have inalienable rights that cannot be taken away from us by our government. Our government has no power to take away our inalienable rights. And in fact, because we have these inalienable rights, we are what restrict and limit our government. And every public servant, once they become a public servant, becomes a servant to our inalienable rights. However, when my friend brought this up to my consciousness, brought this up to my awareness, and chose to share this with me because he felt it was very important to share it with me after a certain bit of relatedness with me, he realized this guy needs to understand this. I need to share this with this guy. Thank you, Van. The important part is that we limit our government. Our government is our servant. I have another friend, Andrew Jackson, a brilliant elder of mine that's lived a successful life for all intent and purposes, as much as I have seen. And with the assistance of all those in his life, this man still has a heart. He still knows how to love. He still knows how to laugh. He's 82. He just turned 82. And he gave me an example. He says, I'll give you an example of Sui Juris. And he shared about how a fire department came to a fire in a local community of his at the time. But this community was over some boundary line. And so because they were over some boundary line, they could not squirt water on this fire. And this fire ended up catching fire to the next door neighbors, and the next door neighbor's house caught on fire too. And he said, that hose, that fire truck, the water is ours. And I said, yeah, that's right. We can pick up that hose, whether the fire department likes it or not, and we can put out the fire. The servants may not be able to, but we can. But I have another friend, and this friend is coming to consciousness about true self-reliant self-responsibility. And I wanted to point out to him that in relationship to all of this power that we have, it creates, with the self-responsibility, a tremendous amount of tension that is required at all the time. All times we need to be at tension as a result of our responsibility that we have been given by birth, whether we like it or not. And many people cannot withstand this tension. They have not been given the proper initiation, the ritualistic initiations that empower them to exercise their attention, being at tension. And they relinquish it to the powers that be. Now, in this paper about Sui Juris, or Sui Juris, it talks about a personal problem. It's by Gatson, Gatsone, or Gate, Gateson, Gateson. Look it up on the internet. It comes up readily. Sui Juris, Gatson. They had some issues with the local community in Oregon, and as a result, they have a problem with the whole judicial system, and they go on ad infinitum. But the first couple of pages are very, very important. Here's to you. Thank you for writing this and posting it, having it be posted. It's a PDF file. And as a result of their issues with the judicial system, they make something very obvious. That the judicial system has power which needs to be restricted. But because of the techniques that they have, the judicial system, attorneys, any social servant, they have powers. They're given powers as a servant to serve. However, when power is involved, there is also the risk of abuse of power. And so there are techniques that the powerful use to retain their power so that it's not given away. However, that's exactly what our Constitution does. Our Constitution limits our government. And it is our required demand as an American citizen to limit them so that they don't abuse their power. You know, if I use the example of my friend, if I have somebody who's trained as a fireman fighting a fire, I'm not going to come up and start demanding that he do it my way because he's my servant or she's my servant. No, they're trained. They're exercising their training. Let them do it. However, it's still a conscious state of attention, of which we need to exercise and limit. And if we're not exercising our powers, the power itself will exercise itself. And I feel that there's a great many people that are social servants that are exercising their power because they feel like the nincompoop ninnies of the general populace need their guidance. I also feel that there's a lot of people who are just born to be a hero and born to exercise their power. However, they don't realize that they're serving people and they become egomaniacal. As I told my friend Van, the main human problem is selfishness and laziness. So as far as the selfishness goes, using our power for our own ego-centered self-aggrandizement, and laziness being when we don't feel like we have enough energy to do it, we'll just relinquish it. These are two opposing things. They're paradoxical, so to say, or there's a dichotomy there. Selfishness is an abuse of power. Laziness is an excuse, excusing ourselves of all our power. Well, I've been graced with a father who showed me not only how to use power, but to use power at will. But with this comes great responsibility. And however clouded his perspective may have been from time to time, for none of us are perfect, he did relinquish or surrender that power to the ideal he had for family or of family. And that in itself I cannot disparage or debase.